Alrighty, so got another GMC Terrain. I don't know if I documented anything on this one. This is just, cookie cutter. Another same engine, just a different car or different day, different customer. What's going on with I got a P0011 and that states, from what I understand, time and chain were advanced or something regarding the oil control. I can't remember specifically, but I do remember when I assessed this vehicle, it was regarding the intake system over advanced or something. So I replaced the oil control valve. It worked better. And let me digress. It wasn't holding the desired versus actual. So the actual position wasn't meeting the desired position. All right. So I don't think it was a cam sensor. I wasn't just going to tackle a cam sensor because the cam sensor's reading, you would have got cam sensor faults. I just logically, it just doesn't make any sense for it to be cam sensor related. But what will happen is while the vehicle's running and is advancing the or actuating the gear, it can't sustain its position in which it variated to. So if it went to 20, 25 degrees, 25, I would say 20 to 25, it would just eventually just shut down and it can't support it. So my conjecture, I don't want to call it a conjecture. I'm assuming it's still my educated guess is going to wind up being the VVT actuator is bad, but I am replacing the timing chain guides and all this other stuff. AAA did the timing chains a while ago. So that leads me to believe either they didn't replace the actuator, the gear, or maybe they reused some parts. I don't know. I used to work at AAA, not repairing vehicles but towing, so I don't know. Maybe they shortchanged some stuff. I've seen AAA actually do a head gasket and use copper spray. Some people are going to have their thoughts about it. I don't have any issue with it, but it's kind of like, oh, from what people pay at AAA, why not put new parts on it? Either way. So let's pull off the intake. What are the intake, air intake housing? We want to call it that, and then we'll pull off the valve cover. After we pull off this idiot cover, and just start tearing it down. And I'm suspecting, because of what I was seeing before, that the actuator will not be replaced, and that will confirm that, okay, this actuator is just bad, because there's little veins in there, and if some of those veins are worn out or there's some obstruction, I don't know what this looked like on the inside of the valve cover, if there's sludge or anything. If there is sludge, then that'll definitely reinforce the idea of having to change the VVT solenoid, not solenoid, but the actuator. So let's pull this stuff down and see what we're up against. Here's the inside of the valve cover. Does look sludged up. To be honest, I didn't have crazy high expectations of it looking pretty good in here or not. I'm not gonna say they don't change the oil on the regular, but they look like they don't. So yeah, I don't know what in the world AAA did, but for what the price the customers complained about, not on my end, but for how much they paid AAA, they didn't change the VVT actuators. They can't look like this in 2 years. It's not gonna look like that. I think they just changed the timing chain and charged them. Wow. Timing chain looks really good. I just think they screwed them. Just honestly, I think AAA got over on them. All right, I just talked to the customer, and they did say that they paid $700 to get the timing chain replaced, but that didn't fix the problem after, because they still had those same issues after the fact. So it makes sense now. AAA didn't screw them over. They put the timing chains on there for $700, because the other chain for the what do they call that thing? The water pump has been replaced too. They just didn't change the components on there, like the guides. I want the tensioners original. I don't know, but when I pull it out, I'll know. So that answers my question. AAA didn't screw them over. They got what they paid for. Unfortunately, I guess when it came to the assessment, AAA just didn't take the precautions of investigating any further. So I guess if you go in there, just go in there right and just replace everything. And so you got to worry about it, especially with the condition. You know, it don't look horrible. I've seen worse, but the oil, the maintenance could have been definitely been up a lot better. So only thing I'm doing, replacing the timing chain, all the components and the actuators. I do have a new gasket also. I don't have a valve cover gasket. I'm gonna reuse that, but I do have a timing cover gasket and a crank seal. So all the basic necessities to get this replaced. I have the oil control valves. I'm not gonna replace those. Those look great. And like I said, I replaced this one already. I had this one brand new laying around. So we're gonna definitely get those gears out of there and get some new ones on there. So again, mainly the intake was screwed up. Now it doesn't rattle when it starts up. I want to add, it just can't hold around 20 degrees. And maybe if I get it out, pull it apart, and see what it looks like on the inside, maybe we'll see something wrong with the vanes or some obstruction. I don't know. But let me get this knocked out. Just pull it down, because some questions were answered. You know, did they replace the actuators? Answer's no. And that's one of the main things I needed to know. We got the oil quality. That didn't look the greatest, but it's doable. It's honestly fine. This is reasonable. So all right. We got the timing cover off. Things pulled down. I'll show you how loose the timing chain was. So we got some slack up here. There's some slack down here. And it definitely translate all the way down to the crank gear there. So this is what I plan on removing by replacing the new timing chain and related components. You know, we could have a worn tensioner. That's getting replaced too. So everything I get my hands on, I'm getting out of there. And get everything modernized and current. So even though, like I said, the timing chain looked real good, it's nice and clean. You know, there's all these little voids that can wear and create play. And I want to say that tensioner obviously is going to be one. Now when I pull that out, I'll see how that feels when depressing it. I don't know how much downward pressure it takes to collapse it, but it might be I don't know what it requires. I have to find that out, but I'll just do a field test. Feel, not field, feel, F-E-E-L, and see what happens. So I'm pull it off and start replace stuff and get everything back installed in reverse order. So here's my new timing component set. I got the VVT sprocket, and there's the other one that came with new bolts. Bolt somewhere down there for this one. So here's that. These are Chloe's, if I recall. I think that's the brand I got. Either way, I got all new timing chain. For the primary chain, I didn't get the oil, not oil, I keep saying oil pump. I didn't get the water pump. And, it does come with new actuators, but I'm not going to reuse those because, like I say, the ones that are on there are perfectly fine. And I'll just keep them just in case I have to warranty the new one I have on there. So we got a new oil squirter. I don't know if the one that's on there is updated, but I'm going to pull that one, the old one off, replace that, new chain. Just the necessities. So there's our tensioner. Oh, that's not the tensioner. Where's the tensioner? Oh, this is it. Tensioner, I'll put it back in that box. Shoot that tensioner in here. Oh, there's our tensioner right there. So here's the, wait a minute, let me get this light on here. What did I do with that tensioner? I pulled it out and I put it somewhere. It's somewhere around here. Oh, it's right here. Oh gosh. So here's the tensioner. And it feels pretty stiff. Feels normal. It's pressurized, but this is human strength, not like metal strength. Something like one of those inanimate, stronger components, a lot stronger than I am. So I don't know if this doesn't look like it was replaced. It doesn't, because 2 years it still should look shiny and new. So it's getting all new. All that's gonna be new. Here's the old chain. It wouldn't be a bad idea just to line them up and see what they look like together. See if they're stretched a little bit. Let me try that. Okay. So I think I got it like lined up pretty good. How well this is gonna work, but it looked like the old one is shorter. It looked like the new one is a little longer. It looked like it, but call me crazy. Yeah, it's new. I want to say it looks good and nice, and it's gonna work like it's supposed to. So again, I probably shouldn't have to change that. This one has different marks. This doesn't have 2 gold marks. It only have 1 gold mark and 2 black marks. I'll probably put white out on these so it'll enhance them. So there's my marks there, 2 black ones and a gold, but the black is closer to the gold. About this right here. So this one right here should be my cam marks here, and the other black one at the bottom should be my crank. So I'm gonna take a break for a little bit and I get some food and come back, and I'm gonna get this installed in reverse order. So when we see it next, we'll just get a visual of everything put back in order, and I'll put everything back together, change the oil. I'm just gonna change the oil, I'm not gonna change the filter, and start it up, see how things work. All right, I just got back from what I consider to be a lunch break. So I got just playing around with the crank gear that I'm going to replace. Now this is the front of it. This is what sits at the crank, the timing chain rod on. There's our timing mark here at the bottom. This is the factory one. It's got GM on it. This is recessed, and this shim is going to sit in this little cove here. Sit just nice and neat. There's another one in the back, but that shim is connected to the it's the divider for the water pump gear. So I don't need this shim to measure this because it sits in a recess, but I was just playing around with it, and I noticed this is about 16.5 millimeters, something around about that. And the aftermarket one is like a little bit over 14, close to 15 millimeters. So about like 2 millimeters shy of what the factory one is. And I remember a while ago, I did another vehicle and I put a timing chain on it, like one of these, and I forgot to put the shim in there. And I was like, oh shoot, I screwed something up. But I don't think it's gonna mess up anything if I forgot it. It's just the crank is going to sit in a different location because the width of the timing chain, the width of the timing chain stays within that gear. So the shims aren't going to make a difference. But I mean, every little bit helps in case it moves around side to side. I don't know what that type of deflection may be called, but if it has any side to side motion, sway or whatever, I don't know. So I'm still gonna put it on here, but I just thought about like, well, if I forgot the shim on the other one, honestly, it's just only gonna ensure that the crank just sits just like a whatever, how thick the thickness of this is. like a thousandth, like, of a millimeter or some shit. I don't know. Just gonna sit in a different location. Oh. All right, let me get this installed. So I got my timing guides in there, tensioner guide. I got the sprocket for the intake on there, but it's not tightened up yet. And I'm gonna get my last sprocket on for the exhaust side, and then I'll be able to tighten everything up. So my marks are lined up properly here on the intake. It's lined up properly on the crank, and I'd usually make the same mistake putting the chain on, putting the tensioner guide on first, and then put the chain on. It don't work. So luckily, the cool thing about this engine is that the tensioner guide will actually support the chain to keep it from falling back down. So kudos. All right, got the other BBT gear out the box. I'm just gonna match it up just to be on the safe side. There's my indicator here at 12 o'clock. If I flip it around, they line up. So the timing marks do line up properly. So I know they're dirty. 12 o'clock. Yep, everything lined up. So I'm gonna find the mark on the chain, which is somewhere back there, right on the side here. All right. So it's not on there, so what I'll do is move the cam to get that dial in sync. There we go. That's it. Double check my timing mark. That timing chain is nice and tight too, man. So that's that. That's that. The crank is lined up. Let me give you a view so you can see what it looks like. There's the mark there. There's the mark here. And I use the white dot. Put a white dot down there if it'll focus. The glare. Yep. There we go. I don't know if that glare is gonna pick up. All right. Here's the crank mark. Here's the mark for the intake. Here's the mark for the exhaust. And it's really tight. It's really tight now. I'm gonna have to get it to sit in the timing guide a little better. So once I rotate it, it should fall into place. I can just take a flathead and move it over. Plan. I got the bolt in here. I know it's gonna probably be probably unorthodox, but I'm gonna tighten the BBT actuators up with 65 foot-pounds. I just don't want to do all the degree and stuff. So if anything come back, it'll fall on me, but I never had any problem just torquing them down to 65 foot-pounds. So let me get my torque wrench. Let me get that out the way. I'm going to 65 foot-pounds, which is around about here, and I'm going to use this 24mm to lock my cams. Oh, I got that smaller socket. I'll probably be a lot better off with that. Let's see how this worked though. That was around about 80 foot-pounds. Again, I ain't never had anything bad happen, so I know I said 65 or so, but give or take. So that was 80 foot-pounds. Timing chains, appropriate. All I gotta do is put my tensioner in there, and that'll automatically release and line itself up. It's the brand new tensioner. So as you rotate it, the face of this will indicate, and it'll pretty much find its way into its resting spot. And once you continue to tighten it up, the force will push down on it, and oil pressure will eventually, which goes through here, pressurize it and tighten up the tension on the chain. So, it's screwed in. Screws in so easily. There we go. I heard it pop. And I don't have any torque specs for this or anything, but I just use my swivel ratchet. Tighten it down. This was a 1 1/4 half-inch socket. So that's it for that. And that tension's a lot better than what it was before. There's no slack in there or anything. I wish it would have a code now as far as being overly advanced. I'm gonna start collecting timing chains. I've seen some other guys on the internet do it, and I'm like, oh shit, it'll be cool if I was to do it, but I usually throw it in junk pile, so I'll make a little spot on the wall for it. So those are tight. Only thing left is to put I'm gonna drain the oil, because I'm gonna just change the oil. I'm not gonna change the filter, because I did spray a lot of brake cleaner in there, and I don't want it to contaminate the oil, but I did put rags in there, so I'm still gonna just drain it and change it. Other than that, we'll be back and see if this thing either start or not start. All right, got the harmonic balancer back on. I got the belt on. Got it semi cleaned up a little bit. And so I'm back at the top here. Oh shoot, got my motor mount in there. The mount bracket. The timing chain is still tight. I didn't rotate the engine or anything, because I'm pretty confident in this timing chain not moving at all. Once everything gets in its fixed position, it's not going anywhere. So the only thing left is to clean the area for the valve cover and reinstall that. But before I do, I'm going to go ahead and add some oil on the timing chain and the guides there, so it'll have some form of lubrication during that initial startup with the fresh timing chain, so we don't have to wait on it lubing up. So, and I did mention I put a new crank seal on there too, so that's also a new part. You know, I got oil inside the plug well, so I gotta get that out. I'll just take some brake cleaner, pour it in there, and just shoot it out with air. And it's on the #1 cylinder. It wasn't that much, but enough to inconvenience you. So I got some sealant on the corners of this valve cover. I'll get this back installed. This back in here. I always forget that cover, man, down there. I swear I do. No big deal, because I need to make sure there's no leaks. So I'm gonna let it run for about 5 minutes when I get it started. Assuming that it works. Assuming that it works, because I probably have screwed something up. Let me see if this will zoom out. I gotta cut the light off. All right. So I'm gonna start it up, see if it works, and check for leaks. Go from there. So I expect a small rattle during the initial startup, just for the VVT and the timing to set, the tensioner to pressurize. So I expect just a slight rattle for about a couple seconds, but we'll see. All right, let's go over it one more time. I got oil. I got everything tight. I got harmonic balancer, VVT sensors, oil control valves for those, spark plugs. All right, let's start it up. All right. It'll smooth out. Let it run and smooth out. It's not bad. It might just be a rough running engine. Camera's not vibrating, so I think we're fine. The only thing to do is look for leaks and see if anything's leaking, like the crank seal. And if there's anything that's out of place. Clean that little area. All right, it sounds good. I'm gonna give it like 3 minutes, let everything circulate, and then I'll put the scan tool up and see what I got going on. So in the meantime, go ahead and get the cover, get that little small spot cleaned up, and look at some data stuff. All right. So before I go on my test drive, I just want to show you the freeze frame data that I pulled from the previous code. This is what I had before. So this is the exhaust position, the actual exhaust position. This is desired. Now after a certain amount, when it's far between a desired and actual range, it'll generate a code. In this case, it was 16 degrees. Here's the intake. It was desired at 0, and it was making, it was desired to be at 16 degrees, and it was at 0. So, and again, I think it's the vanes in the actuator. But I think if I could pull that apart, I would find out. I'm gonna take a look at it. So I gotta figure out which one was the intake, because I don't remember. I should have marked it. That was dumb of me. All right, let me clear this code. And but this P0050D, this should have been because of me doing that initial startup. And I could probably look at freeze frame, but I'm not worried about that. I probably gotta clear it this way. Sometimes the bidirectional scan tool will store the code in there, even if you clear it. If it does that, sometimes I'll just go to the generic feature and see if it's in the global part. All right, let's see here. Now I can do like a cam actuator test, but I'm just going to take it on test drive. I can just monitor that data while I'm driving. That is a test. That's an active feature here. I didn't mean to go to that. Cam position actuator system, and I can vary or alter the state and monitor the desired versus actual and see if it meets what I commanded through the computer. So that is an option, but again, I'm just going to take it on test drive and see what happens. Oh yeah, before I go on my test drive, I just wanted to say also, instead of having to look at all 4 of those PIDs, it's not a good thing to drive and watch like anything else. And so, but if you happen to want to isolate what you're looking at, just look at the variances. And if the variants get well out of specification, then you know you got some problems, versus having to look at all of them and compare it and multitask, if you know what I mean. So that's what I'm gonna do. Just watch the variances, call it a day. All right, for those who don't believe me, just in case, this is my mileage here. I'm driven 3 miles already, so there's my starting mileage. I'm gonna put about 10 miles on it, about that, and see what happens. All right, just got back on a long drive, hung around at the park store for a little bit. So I drove 25 miles, about 15 miles. I said 25 because I think it was at 32. It was close to 18 to 20 miles, something like that. Let's see if we got any codes. It drove phenomenally. This car rides so much better. Yeah, no codes. That is no longer existing. Now, let me add, before I would get the P0011, and I would come on around like 6 to 10 miles before I replaced the solenoid. After the solenoid was replaced, I got a phone call later that night from the customer saying that, check-in light came on. I want to say the next day that the light came on, but when I tested after replacing it was fine. It was just, that solenoid helped, but it didn't completely resolve the issue, and the actuator needed to be replaced. So I want to do what I want to do. I might have to pull both of the gears apart. Maybe I can see the vanes in there that's damaged. But let me do that real quick because it's late at night. It's 9:19 right now at night. Kind of over it. I want to be done with this car, but maybe I could show you what happened. Maybe we could see it. Maybe we might not see it. Maybe it may be a clearance thing with the actuators. I don't know if I can pull it apart or not, but let me see what I can do. Let's see what we got. I got one separated here. I don't know which one's what. So it's there's a little spring that was in there. It's a T30. I guess we'll have to see which one looks the worst. I guess that'll be the one that was failing. I guess I should have done a little bit better of record keeping because I started to orient these. So we got the cover off. Should be able to move back and forward. So I gotta release that lock. Here you go, right here. Still locking back. And this. Pull this one off. This one has wear marks. What's this plastic piece? I don't know if this came with, if this was on the other one or not with a lock. I didn't notice. Yep, it was one on there. I just overlooked it. Yeah, there you go, right there. It's like a little retainer. So that goes above the spring, and that fits right in there to be able to keep the position of the spring so it won't get off track. So once I lift up on it, it'll vary. There's a lock pin here. So obviously this pin opens. There's a channel right there. Oil will fill the cavity. See if I can pull this out. All the veins came out. Man, this is a really good machine surface because that oil is keeping these metal parts together. Yeah, I know I screwed that one up. There's the dowel there that goes into the cam. Was that normal? Look at that. This was broke. Ew. So that explains a lot. That is not supposed to look like that. I lift up on it to pull it out and it just separates. I mean, this is how it's supposed to look. And that's what we got. So this had to have been the intake that was failing. So it would probably move, but again, it wouldn't hold the position. So the fluid, it would just bleed out. So that makes sense. This is the intake. I did not notice that or anything. I didn't notice it was broken. Oh, this is broken too. Is it supposed to look like it? I don't think these are supposed to do this. This is broke also. Look at this. Look at that crack. So logically, if I pull, let's see if I can get this to move also. There's a crack in there. Never seen that before. Is this where I gotta move out to? This is where I gotta move. There we go. If I move this, it's gonna fall out too. Let's see if I can keep these together. Uh-oh. So there's our lock pin right there. So I'm gonna try to hold this one together because this is going to fall apart also. See that? There's a crack right there. And there's another crack right there. So let's just say if I try to actuate this, it may move under pressure, but because the oil will fill the voids. But that's what we got right there. There's our problem. Cool. That's amazing. I don't know, it's broke, but I mean, it's interesting that you can actually see the problem. I did not. That's something I did not pay attention to when I pulled that core out of the other one and everything fell apart. I'm like, okay, they're veins. They're supposed to come out because some I've seen some with like little slots in there, if I recall properly. But that's it. This didn't happen from me loosening up the housing, separating the gear from the actuator or anything. Well, taking a cover off, sorry. This didn't happen from that. I can't just loosen this up and break those because this is what stays in a fixed position. This core here with these veins are what, these are what move. That's crazy. That's amazing. And what I'm gonna do, since we already got a good visual of this, is separate it. See what happens. It should fall out those two. Yep. Yeah, they broke. That's amazing. It's just even better when you can put your eyes on a problem. Wow. That is cool. But I'm curious as to how. Like, does dry startups cause this? Like, does it move back and forward and eventually hit itself on the fixed area and weaken to the point it snaps? I don't think everything's going to be clear, have a perfect clearance. Maybe because the oil pressure just keep beating on there a lot, and over the course of years, it just weakened this area, like a hydro lock or something, maybe. But that is amazing. Even though I didn't show you the codes or anything, just gotta take my word for it. I mean, we pull it apart, and this literally explains every single thing that I had going on. I mean, it would actuate, and it just after a certain threshold, maybe when it advances so far over, it just can't hold that pressure, and it will start to bleed off. And that explains why I had that type of bleed off. Like, it'll move, it'll actuate, but then it'll just progressively go back because those ears or those veins were faulty and they broke. I got an intake code. I didn't get an exhaust code. So it was primary to intake, and I guess because of how everything rotates, that's why it showed that there was a over advanced or a correlation problem with the intake. But maybe that was just the worst one. Either way, computer did its job by detecting the problem. I did my job by narrowing it down. It's either going to be the oil control valve, like that solenoid, or either the actuator. And logically, based off the symptoms that I had, this is what makes sense. It couldn't hold 25 degrees, and it would fall back, fall off. And we saw in the computer that when the freeze frame data that there was a variance of 16 degrees. It just couldn't support it. They had a desired of 16 degrees, and they couldn't support it. And the reasons being, this was broke, bleeding off, and couldn't do anything. So, cool. If anything else happened with this truck, I'll definitely let you know. Hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, how to reach on some work. See you next one.